Welcome to our sixth Sales and CRM ANZ HubSpot User Group. We are delighted to have you, seeing everyone here. So, especially if you're new to this forum and chapter, welcome. Our previous hugs covered a variety of sales topics and some related to one another, but today's topic stands alone. But of course, you can always reach out if you'd like past slides and video of those sessions. So for today's topic, we are going to answer the big question: how to do HubSpot lead scoring. The HubSpot and lead scoring recipe, and today we will unpack everything you need to know to do lead scoring in your business and across your sales team and to getting up and running on HubSpot. For our agenda today, we will run through everything lead scoring, everything around lead scoring. We have the basics, defining lead scoring, what you need to know about lead scoring, presenting the use case for lead scoring, building your lead scoring system, team training, and then we'll advanced predictive lead scoring. And after these slides, we'll definitely have our Q&A portion. We'll open the floor so that you can ask questions to our speakers today. So let me introduce to you our speakers. We have, of course, Glenn Miller. As a director and co-founder of Lupo Digital, Glenn is responsible for growth strategy, and customer experience here at Lupo. Glenn knows digital and how to transform people and businesses effectively and efficiently. He has a passion for helping people and building relationships with a focused lens into sales, of course, HubSpot and CRMs, and together with our Lupo team, he knows how to grow businesses hand in hand with the HubSpot platform. For 6 years, Glenn's been helping businesses and their teams grow their revenue through advanced and AI-backed and automated sales and marketing using HubSpot and integrated platforms. So everyone, we have Glenn Miller. And then, of course, we have Michael Wolf. He is Glenn's co-host today and our one and only additional co-founder and director of Lupo. He is responsible for customer sales and growth. Mike has a strategic understanding of customer pain points and buyer journeys, having worked on the client side before founding Lupo with Glenn. All right, now that I have introduced the speakers, let's get started. Glenn, I'm handing over the floor to you.
Amazing. Thanks, Belle. Thanks, Mike. Welcome to you all. Thanks, obviously, for attending today during your very important lunch break, especially after a public holiday yesterday. I'm going to dive straight into things, backdrop, and also knowing time is precious, but you also may have questions at the end with a lot of content to kind of get through. So as quickly as I can, but as stealth as I can, I'd like to introduce lead scoring. So what is lead scoring? Next slide, please, Belle. There's a bit of a delay also on the internet. Scoring helps your sales team identify and prioritize the most qualified leads. And it assigns a dynamic score to leads to define the lead's priority over which leads are important or less important, and obviously to determine when they're ready and ready to be engaged, most importantly. Next slide, Belle. So just while that loads, I think creating a quality lead scoring model, marketing and sales teams get down to business when it comes to lead to conversion and the process. For example, volume versus. With lead scoring in place, we're able to tell at a glance which leads have the highest level of interest. Secondly, you want degree view of a hot or a warm or otherwise relevant for whatever reason lead. And it helps us to create an informed view of how a lead has engaged with our business and the actions that they've actually taken to get to that point. Thirdly, on the diagram on the right, best fit leads and timing are critical components that lead score helps us with. So the work that's put into the lead scoring helps improve the alignment, and it also helps define clearly when a lead is qualified and when they are ready to pass from marketing to sales. The other nice benefit, and I suppose it's a byproduct of lead scoring and the whole exercise, and especially if you haven't done this before, actually define what is a best fit customer for your business and what are the criteria that define a best fit. So 1, 2, 3 dot points, annual spend, qualification points or criteria to best qualify. So I think with that in mind, next let's review the precise use case for lead scoring and how to identify if you need lead scoring. So Belle, next slide, please. So not every business for lead scoring, and I'm going to unpack why. So firstly, we've mentioned this, but we need to have a high volume of leads, and lead also needs to be, high. And in terms of tracking leads and the profile of a lead, it gets out of hand if there's that high volume of lead for a sales team. So without help and maybe a shortage of manpower to support that outcome of being able to trawl through this high volume of leads and exactly what leads are doing across our digital activity, we need a way to laser focus or something that can tell us, hey, this lead and that lead, and certainly that should happen in a short space of time. So lead scoring is applicable to sales teams, teams capable of managing a high volume of leads versus a lone operator, a single individual. It's not really a good use case for one person. And lastly, with a high volume of leads and then a team in place to manage those, you need to be able to interpret and understand quickly each lead at a specific place in time where they are where they are at in their timeline, in their pipeline. So if we look at our CRM, we see exactly what stage of the journey that lead is at and their engagement over the activity timeline and feed and what they need our help to solve for in their world. So, what is their intent, what they want, where they are at, and when they actually when they need outreach from us and from the sales team. Next slide, please, Belle. So I suppose the next golden question is fits in the buyer journey, right? And by now, I hope that you all know your HubSpot Lifecycle stages. And if not, you can see in the right of your screen, or you could obviously talk to us about just understanding and each of the Lifecycle stages from subscriber all the way to evangelist and advocate. So if you don't know about the latest update as well to HubSpot's Lifecycle stage property, about 2 months ago, they launched a feature giving us the ability to actually relabel the names you're seeing on your screen. So I know for some of you, you're coming from other CRMs, Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce, Excello, where you might refer to these things with different names, labels, literally. In the past, you couldn't redefine them. Now you can. Today's not about that, so I'll leave that where it lies. We can obviously talk offline if you need any advice about that. But I'd like us to zoom in on a layer on top of HubSpot's Lifecycle stages, and that is your definition of what defines each of those relative to your business. So, and more prominently, that's going to impact lead scoring, which I'll explain in a sec. And more prominently, the difference between a sales qualified lead and what defines it, and an opportunity and what defines an opportunity, which obviously then lead to customer. So the bottom half of that diagram. So broadly speaking, lead scoring focuses on the quality of a lead and the timing when marketing should hand over a lead to sales. Obviously, that's a bit metaphorical, but there is a practical element which we'll unpack as well. So sales operates to convert those leads to customers. And if that doesn't work, because the lead isn't ready, the lead's a bit warmer or cooler, then sales needs to hand those leads back to marketing. And physically, there could very well be a conversation, whether it's an at mention in a note on a record in HubSpot, or it's actually a physical conversation that, I keep getting these leads from the market, actually not good leads. And I need sales and marketing to work together to understand that a bit better. So if we look actually at the definition of a sales qualified lead, or SQL, abbreviated, an SQL typically expresses some level of interest in your product or offer, but they haven't been qualified necessarily yet to determine if they actually are a fit for the business, nor if they would benefit from even using your product. And, they're in a state of getting ready or prepared to buy, but they're not there as yet. And I know this sounds obvious, but a good example is the contact us form on your website can all relate to. So just because they filled in a form and they've hit submit, and therefore they're expecting, they might hit a drop menu that says, I'd like to an inquiry for someone to call me back from sales. You may not know what it's about, and they could be selling you something. So you need this level of qualification, and we call it phases, where someone engages on live chat, or as I've said, fills out a contact us form. And from a sales perspective, we need to qualify, are they ready to buy the product? Do they need more information? Why are they contacting us? And so by definition, you could say because they filled out the contact us form and they hit the drop menu, I would like to talk to sales, they're a sales qualified lead, but as per this example, they're not actually qualified. So they might be an ideal potential customer who would consider buying our product. Still need to establish if they are legitimate, and a legitimate opportunity, more importantly, for the sale. And where I'm talking about definitions, we need to actually define the actions that lead to opportunity. So by definition, we need to qualify the fit for the business. We want them being a customer. And then secondly, we need to qualify that they have everything they need so we can give them a quote. And generally, that's a lead to an opportunity. If they've done research, they're beyond the consideration, they've got the price, they're ready to buy, they're an opportunity. Whereas if they haven't considered competitors, they haven't asked for price, they're probably not an opportunity just yet. They're still an SQL, a sales qualified lead. So of course, I realize that this all is pretty obvious. I can't tell you how many businesses that we help with lead scoring haven't actually aligned these very simple basics. And then generally, if you've got 3 to 10 people, let's say, who sometimes actually just stop and think about all these little granular parts that make up an SQL and opportunity, these are things we need to do in building the lead scoring. So it's pivotal and vital that we do it. And yes, today I'm going to go through exactly how to do it. So Belle, if we could just jump to the next slide on what's needed, the process. Awesome, thank you. A bit of a delay on my end. So obviously, we're going to look next at what is needed, right, for the whole lead scoring exercise. So you need a team of people with the skill and the experience to extract the inputs that you need to build your lead score, right? How do we determine the score, as well as the system that's going to surround that score and enable us to actually use it? So you need people to work together to define the lifecycle stages, as I just started mentioning, but also to workshop your HubSpot methodology, to set up a lead scoring system, to absorb stakeholder feedback, to input into that system. And then you need to implement and then train the people how to actually use lead scoring and how it's going to benefit them. So you may also need expertise and automations and putting together some logic around the lead score property. Again, I'm going to cover all of this in the slides to follow. And you actions and outcomes as a result of the score so that you can then send it to the right people, do the filtering, and then you're going to maintain, iterate, retrain people, new starters, new sales team members. And in terms of a living, breathing system, over time, continually be refined as the business, as the marketing, as the sales functions adapt. So you quickly see and realize why the solution is not a one-person solution. It obviously requires a whole bunch of stakeholder input, and obviously underpinning all of this technology and the right technology to power such a system. We recommend that you use HubSpot, and obviously HubSpot has this all built in, which I'm going to walk through next. These tools exist, but they need configuration. So we next go look at the methodology that we can impart on you that is actually the system for guiding and controlling all of this. So in terms of, who is part of this lead scoring process and exercise, firstly, we should be talking to, obviously, sales leaders and sales team members. These are the people that know the client, the personas, and we need to lean on them to best extract, what are the critical data points for the lead scoring exercise, the attributes that we're going to input in. And these are the ones that will help us understand every part of the buyer journey at the cold face. Funnel, in addition to the marketing funnel, but the sales funnel to absorb the marketing to sales handover and get the lead scoring inputs right. And then next, marketing leadership. So, the marketers need to explain the marketing inputs that we have available on a digital platform, or, you could have expos and brochures you're sending out or emailing out from marketing where the salespeople spoke to those human beings, especially in bigger, more complex teams. So all sales and marketing stakeholders will have to have a buy-in. And again, in a sec, you'll see how we extract and exactly what we extract. And then we also move on to like an internal champion of the technology. And in our world, that's a HubSpot champion. And this person's probably required to coordinate, build, facilitate the management of lead score property, as well as the system, and then the longer term ongoing maintenance. Fourth, we're going to need someone with expertise in lead. For example, us at Lupo, or someone who's done lead scoring before, and especially if you don't have someone already. And then finally, allied to that is just a trainer, someone who can actually train all entities how this whole system is going to function, how it's going to come together, and how it's going to work. And in terms of then, like, how can we bring this all together in a system that you could follow, make it easy? Lupo have pioneered a methodology that in a bit of a system, which we're going to call the lead scoring recipe. But the next slides, I'm going to walk through exactly what you would need to do to set up lead scoring. So let's jump straight into that. So to that point, the Lupo methodology I'm referring to has a few parts to it. So a lead scoring worksheet template, which we've put together, and we share this with clients. And a benefit today is we'll share this with you. In short is, and Belle, if you could just jump to the next slide where it's more zoomed in on the actual sheet on the right. After many years of mastery, we've evolved this worksheet to brainstorm and outline the lead scoring attributes that you'd need to go into the system, right? So effectively, we're talking about a HubSpot property, a HubSpot field called HubSpot score. It's become synonymous for a lead score, and that field is a calculate property. So it's capable of calculating numbers, but it's actually got more than that. And again, in a sec, we'll look at that. But that field is going to need inputs, which you'll see in a sec. But in order to extract those inputs, this sheet has been choreographed. As you can see, it's a bit like the HubSpot buyer journey, the funnel. Looking at it top down, we've actually inverted it from the bottom up. So in this, and the sheet is big, but I just wanted you to see the critical elements. We are capable of plotting all the intersection points that an end user in a digital sense will have with the business, all the way from visitor to lead in the top of the funnel, or a marketing qualified lead in the middle of the funnel. And then, as we said, the hand raisers, the qualified leads that obviously we still need to qualify, but they are actually filling in forms and interacting quite closely. Now, the column intent or engagement type has drop menus where you could select the type of engagement you expect from a user. And then on the right, we're starting to think about the score attribute to each activity. Now, some businesses have these weighted averages on how they come to score. Some methodologies use small 1, 2, 3. From our experience and the sales team, their mind and the behavior of a human, we tend to work on hundreds. It's much easier. And in building workflows and talking to teams that are technical and setting up the workflows, for us, these bigger numbers actually help, believe it or not. The actual numbers fairly irrelevant as long as consistent methodology to the number system. So you could use 20s, 30s, 50s. And why you'll see it doesn't matter is it needs to be finessed over time. So almost trust the process, go in and come out the other side, and then come back and do an assessment. How far off were we with these scores? And again, as we progress now through the rest of the slide, you'll come to understand how it comes together neatly. So if you can picture a sheet like this where we forward plotted all the engagements that we expect the user to have on our website, it could even be talking to a team and they log a call. We could say if a call's logged, and the life cycle stage is MQL, let's set 50 points. So we can get quite sophisticated on rule setting. But Belle, if we could just jump to the next slide. Once you've actually finalized that sheet and you've mapped out, put a potential score to them, which I appreciate. By the end of the call, you'll have more clarity on. The next thing is to then open up the HubSpot score property locatable in the contact property section of HubSpot score. And as you can see on the screen, the left side is literally showing you how you build the score in. And the way the screen is showing you on the right side of your view, you have positive attributes, which are all adding to a score. Every time we add an attribute, website page view, lifecycle stage equals MQL, each of those attributes would get its score, 100 points, 50 points. And on the right side, we have the ability as well to program negative score, right? So taking stock, firstly, we want to determine activities influence the lead score, build them out on the sheet, then come to this HubSpot score and load in each attribute on the left as either positive or negative. Now, a negative attribute, which is probably what you might be thinking, might be a particular persona we don't want to deal with, for example. And if you've defined your persona, it's as easy as saying if persona is X, put minus score to them, and you might do that quite large. So if your average score is a 30, interest intent score is 100, you might make 150 as a particular persona, and that way it's lowering their overall score, which is not making them a warm or hot lead, and which again, this will all fall into place in a sec. There are also reverse intent actions too that should lead to increase in score, moving a lead away from sales in some cases, and maybe a specific action like on your pricing page. If a CTA, if a persona hasn't yet engaged with the pricing on your price page, maybe in your world that means they're definitely not ready, and so we might even put a negative if they haven't visited this page, deduct X points. So one would need to just log into the HubSpot score property and actually see the variables, and it's a bit like a workflow. You can build some logic around multiple fields to extract one particular point. Now on the next slide, Belle, if we can, this is where I'm just folding in our reference to defining lifecycle stages. And so again, if you're looking at that sheet I showed you before and it's a bit overwhelming, if you've conducted a lifecycle stage exercise, then you would have probably extracted all those activities already. And again, these two things go really good hand in hand. They don't really affect one another, but the exercise affects both. So it's one and the same. You could almost kill two birds with one stone. If you do the lifecycle stage definitions, and then you use those definitions to put a score in the aforementioned sheet. So both of these sheets we will make accessible for you. Some of this collateral is provided by HubSpot, but the use case isn't. So what's awesome is we've adapted these sheets for the how-to guide, so to speak, not just the theory. Next slide, please, Belle. So once you guys have set up the HubSpot lead scoring property based on the house, and that's all complete, then the next step is just the daily application now of, effectively you've done it. You've built a HubSpot score, but now it's the daily application. Okay, how does sales see that score? How do they work with that score? Is the score right? And now it becomes an issue going forward of actually getting some use from that HubSpot score. So the daily use and maintenance of the sales qualified leads and lead score is locatable in a few places in HubSpot, but the first one we'd recommend is bringing that score into the table view, as you see on the screen image at the moment, bringing the score in on one of the earlier columns. And for those sales members that use the list view in HubSpot Contacts, they can see the score straight away. If they want to know how did the lead attribute to that particular score, they can click on the record, open it, and distill down through looking at the activity feed and timeline how it all came together. The next application, just next slide, please, Belle, is for lead score, is via lead scoring workflow and workflow automation. So if we now have a score and let's say it totals 300 points, how do we know if that's a hot lead or if it's a warm lead, or if it's a lead we shouldn't be contacting? So we recommend setting up a simple HubSpot workflow, and this is how it's intended by design, where you literally, just next slide, please. You literally can look a bit deeper at what scores should indicate MQL versus SQL versus opportunity, and you literally a workflow that says if the score is, and just thinking of some examples, if the score is over X, so we might say 250, but it's lower than 350, it indicates a specific band of MQ. If it's over 350, and these, sorry, I apologize on the slides, the numbers are actually the wrong way around. If it's over the higher amount, then we're getting closer to a sales qualified lead. And then we can actually set workflow notifications that says, either band it's in. If it's between 200 and 350, notify this particular person or team that you have a warm lead. And if it's over 350, notify even the same person or a different person requires it, or a sales leader, we have a much hotter lead. And so that's really awesome because certain skilled salespeople might manage a state, a territory, a division, a type of lead. Maybe it's experience required that is required on a specific product or service you offer. And so you can get quite smart at specifically sending the right lead to the right person at the right time. I think just a very quick demonstration on some of the ways you could filter on an activity referred to below is visible on the next slide. So Belle, if you could just toggle 2 forward. Just to another slide, not this one, but the next one. That's just a demonstration you can look at after the event, everyone, in terms of building the workflow, but I think you'll understand the explanation. Then this is just an example that if you're looking at the activity feed, this is where your internal champion someone like Lupo needs to just train the team at speed that using HubSpot filters on the activity feed would allow you to just very quickly see what engagements were that led to that score. So I don't recommend the team looking at the HubSpot score field, because if they make an edit, that edits the whole score, but certainly how they find the data on an activity field. So in this view, you could teach them how to turn on and off the specific metrics that lead to a score, and they can physically see the timestamp when an ad was clicked, the call to action was clicked, the page views. So looking on the right side of that image now is the actual page view. On the left side menu of a HubSpot, we have the website activity section, which is a quick indicator. They have visited the site, they haven't, how many pages have they looked at? Because straight away you develop a gut feel of their intent. And then finally, in the middle of your page you see on my screen now is just the actual HubSpot score. You can put that as well on a contact record. So just showing you a few ways that the actual HubSpot score can fold into the process of how a person uses HubSpot daily. And then I suppose just onto the next slide, Belle. The system doesn't end with training, right? So once we decide how we want the team to engage, score across everything I just demonstrated, it doesn't end there. You know, we need the sales team's input into, okay, score X gave me this kind of lead. Was it actually a good lead, a bad lead? That would need some input. And then, you know, the issues that surround that conversation most likely surround contact interpretation by each contact owner. So you could even talk to different departments, different heads of the sales team, different team members to understand how we can engagement scores. Maybe we need to reduce one that's 100 down to 70 because it's just pushing everyone into a warm status where it shouldn't, for example. Things that your internal champion might have experience in, or could work with someone like us to help educate everybody how to maintain this daily system. And I suppose holistically, and again, we've tried here, I know we've just gone 2 minutes over time, probably because we started 5 minutes late, but typically we like to keep today's session to half an hour. Maybe you feel I've moved through this quickly, please do tap me. I just wanted to give you a sense of everything encompassing on how we use of lead scoring in a basic level. For all users, I think you'll find today helpful, because even if you're an advanced user of HubSpot or automation, understand how lead scoring typically comes together. And today was a taster. So I hope to this point, you've all got a good cross understanding of the basics. I'm going to hand you over to Mark just to delve into the predictive lead scoring, which is a more advanced part of lead scoring. Mikey, over to you.
Yes, guys. So I'm just battling to get my camera going, but Glenn, are you hearing me?
It's loud and clear, Mark.
Okay, guys. So just very quickly talking about predictive lead scoring. This is an advanced feature of lead scoring, and I might add it's only applicable to enterprise licenses, marketing and sales enterprise licenses. But broadly speaking, predictive lead scoring uses machine learning. It's a tool that uses an algorithm to predict which contact in your database is qualified or not qualified. So common examples that HubSpot uses to scrape, as you can see on screen, is demographic info, HubSpot Insights, info about your business or unique to your organization, and then interactions logged in the CRM that HubSpot captures as well. Now, there are two very unique lead scoring properties that HubSpot would use for predictive lead scoring. One is likely to close, and this is by definition a percentage probability of a contact closing as a customer within the next 90 days based on certain contact properties and activities. So for example, if contacts with a close probability of 22, they have a 22% chance of closing as a customer in the next 90 days. So that'll come up on your screen as a field or property. And then this second property called contact property, this is a ranking of contacts evenly distributed into tiers based on their likelihood to close. So those options include very high, high, medium, low, and closed one, which means you've already converted them into a customer. And obviously where very high is most likely to close and low is least likely to close. So that's just a little bit of info about predictive lead scoring. Glenn, back to you.
Thanks very much, Mikey. Yes. With terms like Mike's alluded to, like algorithms, and certainly in today's world, you would have all heard of ChatGPT. Not sure if you're aware, we can talk about this offline as well, that HubSpot have launched ChatSpot in alpha, which is their integration of ChatGPT and HubSpot and your business. It's going to be interesting to see where this all ends, Mikey. But in terms of HubSpot's AI and predictive lead scoring, it's pretty awesome in terms of what they've done. And obviously, your mind can wonder, just on what Mike said, likelihood to close, that in addition to what I showed you on a more manual-ish, even though you might use automation level, this just amps things up a notch for bigger businesses or businesses that need, happy to spend more on enterprise versions of HubSpot to get a much quicker outcome. So in the meantime, and just before we hand over to you guys, I did want to mention, Belle, if you could just hit the next slide, that we will be giving you some bonus material. So for those of you that want to self-serve, you're thinking, how do I do this myself? Can I get started? We've consolidated everything I've mentioned on the worksheet side of town, but also HubSpot Academy courses. And if you want to get up and running, we can include some explainer videos of some of our past client examples of when we've set up lead scoring and just briefs to their teams and things that can let your mind work out. You do it for yourself, or you're welcome to engage us at any time to assist. So to that end, I'd like to open the floor and hand over to you guys with any questions that you might have had. Belle, I know you're curating the Q&A, but if you are not able to come off mute, if you don't have that function on your screen at the bottom of the video, I might ask you to please type your question into chat. And if that's not working, please type it into the general window. And I can see we had a message there from Simon a while back that he was still getting a screen that the session was starting in a bit, but he was typing there. So he might have had a technical glitch. But in the meantime, Cynthia, Gabriella, the rest of you, if you have any questions to share, please share. Now we would love to assist. So Belle, I will just give it a couple seconds to attempt to do so. I know everyone sometimes is a bit nervous or shy or scratching their head as to how to frame a question. So with you for a few seconds. Thanks, Belle. So Belle's just prompted in the Q&A. See a message from Gabriella. Our pleasure, Gabriella. Thanks for attending today. We look forward to hopefully seeing you on the next one. Okay, and I think, Cynthia, thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you for your generous time given the public holiday yesterday. But yeah, Belle, it looks like no other questions. Perhaps there was a technical glitch in just getting in for some today. But again, I'll wrap it up there. Unless questions fly in, we'll obviously grab them. But I think for today, we'll wrap it up there. Mikey, thank you for your attendance today as well, and host. And Belle, thanks for facilitating.
Yeah, all good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you. Sales and CRM ANZ Hug. Until next time, enjoy your HubSpotting.